I had a seizure, cracked up a car, and suddenly we find ourselves having 12 days in the hospital where I never spent overnight ever. Um, and you find out that there's something incredibly wrong with your head and that it's fatal. And, that is heavy.
Hi, everyone. So, this is a super special episode, clearly, because we have the man, the myth, the legend himself, our most specialist, bestest guest,
the topic of our whole thing, Mr.
the apple of
Juice.
our eye,
The apple of
maybe,
our
one
eye.
might say.
Are you talking about the dog?
Yeah, where is
No.
he?
This is our dad, but go ahead, take the floor.
Hello, I'm Doug. Nice to see you all, although I can't see anyone. That's funny.
Yeah, a little bit.
You're perfect. Keep going.
That's all I got.
That's all you got? Okay, cool. Well, we're back at home. That's why we're able to get our special guest on our podcast today.
I'm honored, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
That's very sweet.
You're the most important guest we could ever have.
He put on a nice sweater for everyone, too. Lack of a better question, how are you feeling today?
I feel okay. That's the weird part is I feel fine. Other than, kind of tired, but I'm always kind of tired because I'm old. I think there's ups and downs every day. I think I probably hit every range of emotion on a daily basis. And, you wake up in the morning and you feel one way or another. And I have an unrelated back issue. So sometimes I don't sleep well and then I'm kind of tired and cranky. And
You cranky?
yeah, imagine that.
Okay.
That might be an episode after I'm gone.
Oh,
Maybe two episodes. So I don't. There's a heaviness some days. There's you don't know if it's sadness or if you're tired or whatever. But it's such an alien equation for me, as it is for all of us. I had a seizure, cracked up a car, and suddenly we find ourselves having 12 days in the hospital where I never spent overnight ever, and you find out that there's something incredibly wrong with your head and that it's fatal and that is heavy. And I look at you guys and it's heavy, and I look at your mother and your other sister and it's heavy because you want to stick around. And then there are other days where you're like, yeah, I just feel terrible for your mom because she's a caregiver, and that's not what anyone needs to be unless they signed up for it.
She's pretty good at it, though.
Well, she's great at it, but I'm saying she didn't sign up to be an RN or anything else.
Yeah, but I think she signed up for a lifetime of ups and downs with you, and it's sickness or health. This is the test of all tests, at least for the sickness part. Yeah, I mean, I think it's gracious that you spend all of your time worrying about her and about us and not about you. I think that says a lot about you and about the situation.
I mean, we literally just asked you how you're feeling and you talked about all of us.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean,
If anything, he's consistent.
Yeah, I'm consistent. I'll be gone at some point. Sorry, it's the harsh reality. I think it's harder for the survivors. I really do, and because it's sad. The sadness continues for me. My sadness theoretically will end. I don't know what happens, but I kind of got a clue. When you're dead, you're dead. But I feel terrible for the caregivers, the survivors, the family that it carries on without. Not that I'm like the best deal, but
You kind of are.
but
Biggest best deal. I like that. You should get that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, no, I don't really need clothes right now because it seems kind of silly. I just I feel bad. Maybe that's my way of protecting myself. I don't know. But I feel bad for you guys. I don't feel great for me. Just to be clear. Yeah, it's a range of emotions, and I would say that's what happens every day. So it's a little bit weird. I had lunch with a friend the other day, and he said, "What's your day like?" Because I'm retired and no longer really working. I do some consulting and things like that, but it's like, "What's your average day like?" And it was a little bit of a surprise question because I'm not doing that much, and I don't think that's great.
Okay.
Part of that is the orthopedic back issue. Part of that is just I'm tired. But I'm tired because I'm not sleeping well, and I'm not sleeping well because of the back. And then you're up and you think about all this other stuff, and then you turn and you see Becky, looking at her phone on some, kind of site that's about GBM, and it's 4:30 in the morning. So it's kind of sucks, but
Well,
not a surprise. It should suck. How's that for an answer?
that was great.
Okay.
I mean, I think what you were last saying just about the cycle of everything, it's not, when I'm like, how are you feeling? That's such a loaded question because, I mean, of course it is. because there's so much going on and you are, I guess, obviously experiencing it in a different way than all of us are because it's actually happening to you, but feeling like all the feelings and emotions that we're feeling, you also are like reflecting those and feeling those yourself in sort of that weird, almost like guilt when it shouldn't be guilt. And I know that's something that you have worked on or talked about. Emma and I both like are newly into therapy. Granted, it's something we should have probably been doing for a while. All of my friends said that. They're like, it took this, really, Haley? But anyway, it's something that Emma and I both sort of like dove into, and really enjoyed it, at least I think.
Yeah.
I think it's dived.
Dived?
Nose doved.
I was having this weird feeling of guilt of like back and forth of living in New York and coming back here, and something Emma and I will probably continue to talk about. And just like when I have a fun weekend and I like am not necessarily thinking about the situation, I'm like, oh, I feel sort of guilty. Mm-hmm. And I was describing that to my therapist and she's like, that's not guilt. And she was unpacking me what guilt is. And she was like, guilt is like when you do something wrong. And this was hypothetical. I've never done this, but she was like, if you hook up with your best friend's boyfriend, like you feel guilt. You wake up, you're anxious, like you did something wrong. In your circumstance, it's not guilt. It's what you're feeling is like, you just like love. And she was like, you love your dad and like, you just want to hang with him. But like, that's not, it's just like you're missing him and you love him. And it's like feelings of missing and wanting to be with you, which is what I feel every day, always. Like before all this happened, I just love you, promise. But like, that's what it was. And like replacing that was something that my therapist said that I was like, that's really helpful for me because I don't feel, I was misplacing my guilt. And I feel like I don't want to speak for you, but I know like you and mom have talked a bit with the therapist, like, or MSW. You don't need to share about that, but.
No, but I mean, that's an important part. And I said to, when we were once talking to the therapist, I looked at your mom and I said, you're going to feel guilty when I'm gone because you will feel relief at one point. Because it makes sense. You're going to, instead of being a caregiver, you're going to be not a caregiver. And it should be a relief. And that's going to make you feel terrible.
I mean, yeah, that's something I honestly have never thought of. And granted, because I'm not the primary caregiver, but
there'll be a moment of that. And I don't, I just want her to feel she's amazing, obviously. And we've had a lot of years together. We don't get all the years we thought we'd have, but we got quite a few. And as I said with you guys, this is easy in the sense that we don't have all these things we need to repair. We are all pretty well, including Lucy, your other sister. We're all kind of resolved on things. It's not like, oh, I wish that I had talked about this or whatever, covered this or that. I feel like we've had a pretty good life. It's been a good and clean and easy run in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're not trying to cram in a bunch of stuff right now. Like we don't, not in like a bucket list sense or anything, but it's not like we don't have reparations to make. We don't have, I mean, we have trips that we want to take and stuff like that, but it's nothing that, like if all of this ended tomorrow for all of us, it's not like, I don't think we'd have any regrets, which I think is so great, but it's also sort of like, it's hard to feel grateful for such a good life and such a great relationship and such a great run when we're stuck with this, when it's being, and I think that's sort of like, we keep trying to find silver linings in all of this. And that's a huge one. I think the fact that we've had such a great relationship will continue to have that. We don't need to be running around trying to fix stuff. I think like of all of our friends, of all of the people we talk to, it's like people are jealous of the relationship that we have had with you. And that's not something that's not something they're coming out of the woodworks to say because of this situation. Like that's something that we've heard since we were growing up. Everyone's like, oh, your dad's so great. We wish we had a dad like that. Like, you don't know how lucky you are. And it's like, to have that is such a great thing. I think it makes this, not that this is ever easy. I can't imagine a situation where this would not be hard. I think it makes this a lot harder, but it's also like, it makes it more like what the fuck? Like, how could we have, like, of all people, I think that's sort of the root of this podcast. You never think this stuff's going to happen to you.
Until it does.
Until it does, exactly. And I don't know. It feels so unfair. And there's so many things that are so great that it's hard to sit here and be like, this is like unfair, but it is. It's not fair. This whole situation is.
Yeah, it's not fair to anyone, in our situation or outside of it. I mean, this is a shitty hand to be dealt.
Yeah. Arguably one of the worst.
The shittiest, one might say.
One might.
There seems like so many jokes that we could say. Yeah, I mean, and selfishly, I think, you guys look at it and say, why us? Or what did you call this?
Not
Not
us.
This is alien, and we're right smack in the middle of it. It's not an arrogance saying, oh, it should happen to us. It's like, no, you just don't know how to mentally process it because you never thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, why would you think about it until it happens to you? But it's just such an odd alien thing. And, the movie's written, the ending is done. It's like a question of when. And unfortunately, they're making progress with research and all that stuff, but it's
it's hard to lean into the hopefulness of that because it feels like such a far stretch. And I think
you're right.
We've talked about this a lot. Like, you have to hope for the best but prepare for the worst, and it's sort of like, what's the line of them being foolish? Like, we don't want to have all of these high hopes just to be let down from them. I mean, I think you never know. Like, your situation is different. Your tumors aren't progressing nearly as fast as they typically do in this diagnosis. But all that said, it's like, how long can we hang on to, like, you're not the garden variety, stuff's not moving, you look different? It's like, where is that? Like, at what point are we being dumb?
Yeah, and I think that's part of what I was struggling with in the last, month or so, is sort of feeling optimistic. To me, feels like a super dangerous position to be in.
Interesting.
I think it's dangerous. I think it's necessary. I just think we need to toe the line of power of positive thinking, which I know you're a lifelong cynic, so maybe that's not your cup of tea. But am I wrong?
No, spot on.
Oops.
But I think, the way that I've approached, like, anything in my life, I think difficult or not difficult, is sort of like, don't bank on what you want the outcome to be, because then you're going to be so crestfallen when that doesn't happen. So it's sort of like, we don't want to we're going to be devastated regardless. So it's sort of like, what's really the risk of setting ourselves up for total heartbreak? When this ends, no one's going to be surprised. But I think that we want to hope for the best situation. We want to hope for the maximum amount of time. A part of me is still like, maybe they were wrong, but that I think is...
Okay, so this is where I chime in, because I know we've talked about this like on the side, but like, I think also this, like, the towing the line between like power positive thinking, being a realist, like, I think that is true for every person, but I think it varies for particular people and like what they are capable of doing and what makes them feel better. Because like, for one, like for Mom, for instance, like, she isn't leaning in that much into the positivity because she doesn't want to be crushed. And like, that's just how she operates.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm balancing her out, because I'm literally like, every day I'm like, it's the longest April Fool's joke in the world. And I know I'm being naive, but I also am like, oh, like, what, no one beats this? Oh, until now.
Right.
Until
like, where's
now.
Ashton Kutcher? Like, we got really punked.
I just think like, and I know, like, in my chest or whatever, something in my stomach here, like, I know, what is that in your gut deep down, like,
I know in my chest.
I just know, like, I know I'm not being like, I know this isn't great, but like, if my hoping and my like putting goodness into the universe and holding the doors for people and trying to gain all the good karma I can right now, like, what if that helps? Like, I don't know. And I think Emma was expressing this well. It's like, there's no circumstance where I can like prepare myself where I'll be like, knew it,
right,
when the worst day happens. So like, it's gonna rock me either way, for lack of a better word. For me, like, being a little delusional, it's like, it's sort of also,
it's helpful,
and it's also like taking a little bit of the reality out of it, and like, that's how I cope, and that works for me.
I think if it helps your day-to-day, like right now, it's sort of, I think we spend a lot of time pre-grieving, which we've been told not to do. We've also been told not to Google, but it's like, obviously we're doing that as well. Can't stop doing that. But I think the thinking about the end, thinking about, okay, how can we best prepare for this? What are we going to do after? What's life going to be like after? It's so hard to not think about that. But I feel like it's maybe more productive to just try to piece it day by day. It's like, okay, well, we have today. What do we can talk about this, but then let's put it in a corner. Like, what are we going to do today? What time are we going to spend today? How can we, it's impossible to go through the day and not think about what's going on. But how can we compartmentalize it and do something else and have a nice dinner or have a nice walk? Or
you can't have this be the topic every minute of every hour of every day.
You won't accomplish anything.
But you also can't pretend that it doesn't exist. So it's sort of like, what's that median? What's the line that you can toe? And everyone, all the doctors, all the therapists, everyone says to us, be grateful for the time you have right now. It's like, I am, but you also, this sucks.
Sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no, you, as I said earlier, you've seen the end of the movie and we get the joke, but it's hard to find the balance and it's hard to find the positivity. I am grateful for so much and so many things that we have as a family, but I'm pissed too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I was spending a decent amount of time thinking there's a solution. And then I realized that's a big waste of time.
Mm-hmm. Some days I might be like, I'm really angry and I'm going to stay in bed and my back hurts and I don't want to move. And then other days you might be feeling great and want to go for a walk or go to an awesome dinner and go on a date with mom. But like, it's not like you can plan that sometimes, because some days I think the physical feelings, but also the emotional feelings and more the mental stuff too. Like, you don't know you're going to wake up on a Tuesday and feel like ass, but like you might. And you don't know you're going to wake up on a Thursday and feel amazing.
Took you like 20 minutes to get the word ass in. Good for you.
No, we said it a lot before. Just,
Okay.
We got it out of the system.
Before I got in the room.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
we
the
were-
mic
we were just
check.
sitting
was
there going, ass. That's always the mic check.
But you raise, that's so impressive. You do raise the topic, I don't want to disappoint your mom. Like I could have easily knocked on out last night.
Yeah.
So I'm tired and I'm, whatever. And it hurts to walk or whatever, unrelated to cancer. It's just a sciatic issue. But, I also didn't want to disappoint her.
And did you have fun?
Yeah, we had a great time. It was fun. We had to take a car home for 5 blocks, but
I think like that's not the takeaway of the evening. I think the takeaway is you had a great time together. And
also, when mom told us this morning, she didn't say that. She said that you walked there. So
Yeah,
I think
nice.
that there's the other side of it.
Yeah, it's
and
hard.
she pushes you in that way too, which I think is why I've always admired you guys as a couple. You guys are very different, and I think like you complement each other and help each other grow very well. And like in this circumstance, whether it's like it might look like nagging, but like her mom like working on you to get you moving is all out of love. And like that sometimes it's like, yeah, you could have stayed in and like some days you're gonna, but like she pushed you to do it and you did it maybe not with the intention of you wanting to go and get sushi, but like you wanted to be with her and make her happy, and like it ended up being a great date night.
Going for her is a good enough reason to go, and then it ends up being great. It's like,
oh, totally. Once we get moving, it's easy. But being motivated by making her happy is phenomenal for me because that's all I need.
And that's a big
I think that's
motivator.
always been your biggest motivator, is
Yeah, it's
making
not
her and
about
us.
me.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's what makes this, even just going back to what you said at the beginning of this, like that's what makes all of this harder, is it's in your head, it's never been about you. So to be then the person that's leaving us at a point is hard. And I think you've always been so selfless and you've always been so focused on doing great things for us and putting us in the best positions, whether that's in our day-to-day lives or where we were going to college or what we were doing extracurricularly. Like whatever we've ever done has always from you been about us. And I mean, I think that makes this all harder, like I said before, but it's also like your work is done in a sense. Like you've set us all up in such great spaces and you've created this amazing life for us that will go on in a worse way without you. But it's also like we've now been in the positions we've been in and been able to accomplish what we've done, I think, because of you and the way that you've pushed us and focused on us for the last 30x however many years.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't minimize that you guys have done what you've done. We've just tried to be enablers, but, you guys push yourselves along and you guys have accomplished what you accomplished because of yourselves, not because of me.
Well,
I think your motivation and your instilling in us that we can do whatever we want to do
and supporting as we do it.
Yeah, I would attribute, I think, way more of it to you than you would to you. But that's sort of just you.
And
that's consistent with the brand, right?
Exactly. I was just gonna say this. It's all coming back to like you being humble and putting us above you and always doing that.
But I also think I'm right.
Well, no, we know.
Why do you think Emma and I always think we're right? We got that directly from you.
That's been your biggest burden this whole time, right? Is just being right consistently.
Yeah. Being right doesn't always make you win. Yeah.
Take notes, kids.
It's so great to walk through this journey with you from your point of view. I think we want to take a little break, but then come back and talk about like not cancer stuff. This isn't easy to talk about all the time, but you've done it quite eloquently, which obviously we expected because it's you.
You're so eloquent.
It's so handsome, so eloquent.
Do you think anyone's still listening, or have they shut their head in the door?